Hey everyone! I put up a poll recently, and thanks to everybody that actually voted on it, that I was going to do some offerings on the channel, something a little bit different than what I've been doing normally. TV reviews, movie reviews, top 5, top 10s, discussions, a bunch of different reviews. And while this wasn't the most requested version of this, it is the one most accessible to me at the moment. So we are going to do a TV review. Welcome to episode 1 of TomWasHere TV Junkie, where we are going to review, and I wrote it down, The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window, a new Netflix series. We're going to do a little bit different than it seems that some people do online, where they do a they'll kind of do a review without really spoiling details. I'm going to spoil details. Look, I have no outlet anymore. Previously when I would watch TV shows, I would go into work, I'd chat with some coworkers about it, we'd have mutual discussion on it, but I work from home now. I work from home, and therefore, you are my outlet. My wife only watches makeup videos and murder shows. My kids aren't old enough to watch anything, so that leaves you to basically determine if I'm talking crazy or if I'm right. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. But we are going to get into spoilers for Professor Plum with the candlestick in the billiards room. Or Colonel Mustard with the wrench in the study. Or The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. Let's check it out. Over the last day or so, and it's an easy watch, 8 episodes, they're less than 30 minutes long, I watched The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window. I will never remember that title offhand because it's absurdly long. And seeing that title, you should know that it is supposed to be a parody of things like The Woman in the Window, Rear Window, The Girl on the Train, and some of these absurd, maybe not Rear Window to extent, but Rear Window, has become in itself, everybody's done Rear Window. Since, Alfred Hitchcock went along, and I think that was Alfred Hitchcock's first title for Rear Window, was The Woman in the House Across the Street. It was the man in the house across the street from the girl in the window, and then he went, no, just call it Rear Window, and everybody liked it better. But The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window stars Kristen Bell as Anna. And Kristen Bell plays it legit, like she plays it great. And all the other actors play it great. But I will say that this is not a parody like Scary Movie's a parody, or like The Naked Gun's a parody, or like Airplane's a parody. This is played almost like it's supposed to be taken seriously. Except for, it has some of the most absurd plot beats and plot points, which if it's when it's a parody, things are supposed to be played as funny. It's not really played as funny, it's played serious, but it's not played serious like Leslie Nielsen played Frank Drebin serious in The Naked Gun, where he read his lines seriously and kind of there was absurdity around him. Not that he didn't make jokes and stuff. This one is played almost like it's supposed to be serious, but at times it's a parody, but never really funny, or I don't know if there's attempts to be funny. I never found humor in most of the stuff in there. In fact, some of the stuff is weird. Now, I get that it's like a dark comedy, but the whole hook of it is Kristen Bell is Anna. Her husband has left her. Her daughter has died. And she's just a miserable, sad sack who drinks just an alcohol's poisoning worth of wine and just sits in her house and watches the outside world go by. And then a stranger moves in across the street, single dad with a little girl, and she watches them and she decides, oh, this is the person that I'm going to be with. I'm going to crawl myself out of my wine bottle and try to befriend this this guy, and, that'll be my new life, is with this. So, some of these things you've kind of seen, you've heard before. They've existed before. They've existed in various movies and TV, and I get that it's a send-up of it. But then they go on to explain, and this is where it lost me. I'll be honest. I never fully recovered from a reveal on this show. Never fully recovered from it. And like I said, we're going to get into spoilers, so this is your warning now. If you have not watched this show, stop what you're doing. Stop this video. You can always like it and come back. Please come back. But stop watching this show. Watch this show. Then come back and see if you were lost at the point where I was. So early on in the show, she's talking to her little girl, and then there's this reveal that her little girl had died. Okay, fine. Happens to people, all the time, and one reason why you crawl in a wine bottle and live forever. Now, the way that this little girl died is the most absurd thing I may have ever heard on a show. It is in no way. I get that I get that it's a parody, but it's not funny, and they're playing it as realistic. In fact, when this reveal occurred, I was so convinced that up until the end credits of the last episode, that she was going to wake up and it was all a dream, or you're a crazy person, that you've been living in an asylum and you made up the story in your head. I was so convinced this occurred. But yet, it's not. It's supposed to be deadly serious, and let me explain all the gigantic issues with this curse. In this scenario, Kristen Bell's husband, and this is what ends their marriage. Kristen Bell's husband is a criminal therapist, I guess, or, he works with the worst of the worst, serial killers, convicted felons, and he's their therapist. He decides to take his daughter to Take Your Daughter to Work Day. I will repeat, he meets with serial killers, convicted felons, whatever, and attempts to talk them through their various problems. He takes the daughter to this Take Your Daughter to Work Day, and then the warden comes in with an urgent matter that he needs to speak with a criminal psychologist about. And he leaves the room, leaves his daughter in there with a serial killer and cannibal who apparently, and this is hammered home several times, kills her and eats her. How this occurs when he's under lock and key, I mean, is it just like dead baby jokes they had on the wall and they're like, we can actually make this work? This part, like I said, I couldn't wrap my head around. The idea is that when the warden comes in to speak with him, that they get locked out of the room. That's the hook. Yet the husband who would have witnessed his daughter being killed and eaten is totally fine, and Kristen Bell's character, who was home at the time, is ruined. Like, she can't walk outside when there's rain. She's crippled by the rain, because when they went off to go to this Take Your Daughter to Work Day, that it started raining or something like that. So it's not like the car skidded off the road and the husband lived and the daughter didn't. That's far more reasonable scenario. No, this scenario is so absurd. And no parent in the history of parents, no company or business or prison for that matter, would ever allow this to occur in the history of people. It's so over the top and absurd that I can't get past it. I couldn't get past it. And so the whole hook of it is that beyond this is that the husband, leaves her, or she leaves him, or however it works. She sits in this giant house in this very nice neighborhood. She's apparently a painter that doesn't paint anymore. I assume her husband's paying the bills and stuff, because he's fine. By the way, he's fine that this occurred. You see nothing. Now, I get that he's a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever he is, that he would have maybe an easier way to understand what occurred than she would. But she doesn't paint, she doesn't do anything but sit there and drink just an absurd amount of wine, and sit in this house all day watching other people's lives. Is he paying the bills for her? Because she doesn't do anything. I assume he's enabling her with wine as well. So, she's getting all this wine somewhere. I understand that it doesn't need to be picked apart this much, but there's a point where I can't sit idly by and let this absurd detail of a plot point, like I said, it ruined the show for me, because when you get into the situation, which is that she witnesses a murder, no one believes her. I mean, this has been the plot point of everything, since Rear Window. They've had so many versions of this, so many different ways that this story's been told, and I get that it's a parody of that, but at no point is it ever funny enough to be, oh, this is a pure parody, or serious enough to take itself seriously. Like, it wants to take itself seriously. It doesn't know what it wants as a show. But that thing with the absurdist fairy tale of this occurring and being like, as soon as this occurred, I was like, there's no way this is real. Like, she is in a insane asylum. She ended up killing her husband and her daughter, and then she can't cope with this, so she made this like fairy tale world. Would be the only logical explanation for some of the absurdity that occurs in this show. That's not even getting to the big reveal, I guess you could say. So this goes down various rabbit holes, and basically, have you ever been in a bar and you're talking with someone who's clearly drunk and they're telling you a story, and then you're kind of, to be honest, if there's a drunk telling you a story, you're not really paying attention, you're half paying attention. But let's just say you were actually paying attention to their drunken story. And every once in a while, there'd be a friend who was sober that would go, no, that's not how this happened. It actually happened this way. That's the whole hook of what's going on here, is that Kristen Bell is a blobbering mess of a drunk. She's been through a traumatic situation, and she is unreliable as a narrator and storyteller, yet that's who you're dealing with in this story. So there's certain plot points that go nowhere. There's certain plot points that, this thing occurs and you don't know whether it actually occurred or not until the story goes like, yep, that actually occurred. Happens a ton in this. And she, like I said, she plays her character well. She has this weird, I don't know if the narrator was like, hey, do this ASMR thing. Basically, she's like scratching the microphone away from being like a full-blown ASMR thing in this early narration. But the hook of it is that she witnesses a murder. It's the guy that moves in next door's girlfriend that they introduce right after she's determined that this is where their lives are gonna, it's gonna work out with him. They have dinner together. She makes a casserole. She has 9 million casserole dishes because she breaks a whole bunch of them. But she's always making casserole. She makes casserole for this guy. They have a nice dinner together, and she assumes, oh, this is the one. This is who's gonna get me out of my funk. Only to find out he has a flight attendant girlfriend, who's of course younger and prettier than she is, and then there's this small plot point where she gives the daughter of the guy these markers, and then she sees the flight attendant girlfriend throwing away the markers because she's sensitive to smell. So she decides she's going to get pissed off at her for throwing away these markers, and so the next thing she sees is her being killed, her throat slashed, and she's, of course, in a giant bay window in a neighborhood, which Kristen Bell's the only person that can see this happening, of course. And no one believes her because she's a drunk and she's been through a traumatic situation. Her ex-husband doesn't believe her. The police don't believe her. And then, various plot points occur with a boyfriend. It turns out the flight attendant was leading a double life to scam this widower out of this money. So, yeah, there's a lot of convoluted mix of plot points. But sadly, plot points that you've seen in more serious movies before. But the hook, the finale hook, is almost absurd, almost as absurd as how her daughter died, but no, it might be only less absurd than how her daughter died, but still silly just the same. So there have been child serial killers before. I assume there's people like that. But in this case, the very played as innocent daughter of the widower across the street is the one that's killing all these people. And so they walk into the situation where... And wait, I missed one very key detail. They have a handyman. Kristen Bell doesn't have a job. Her character Anna is, like I said, being a drunk, sitting at home. I assume the husband's paying the bills, and they have a handyman that's always working on a mailbox. In fact, about the second or third time that I saw him, I was like, "Wow, he can't." I am no handyman. I hate building IKEA furniture. It's just not what I'm made up to. It's not my. I'm not a fan of building anything. I've never had that industrious mindset. I get way too frustrated and way too annoyed building stuff. But this handyman works on their mailbox for like 5 episodes or 6 episodes or maybe even more episodes. He's constantly working on the mailbox to the point where I thought he was a character that didn't exist. I thought he was completely in her mind because she's a full-blown crazy person, an alcoholic, that he didn't exist because he's working on a mailbox. And when he's not working on a mailbox, he somehow finds this, I guess some like side light was broken, and he thought maybe an animal fell off on the, thing and broke the light. But like, I didn't understand what his purpose was. Like, is he a neighborhood handyman? No, apparently he's their handyman. Or in this case, because her husband's left, Kristen Bell and this character, handyman. But she doesn't have a job and she doesn't work. She only drinks wine and sits there all day. Yet this handyman's constantly working on a mailbox. Like I said, the level of absurdity, I can be duped. I can check my brain in at the door on certain things. This one, there's so many various plot points that were so over the top and absurd that I just couldn't do it. And even if it was supposed to be a parody, it never sold me as a parody. Ever, at any point. So, based on this, she's convinced that now the handyman maybe is the one that killed all these people. And she sees the handyman going over there with a hammer, and she thinks, oh, they're going to kill the little girl, they're going to kill the husband, or, the father of this kid, only to find out that it's the little girl that's the one that's killing all these people. Ends up stabbing the handyman, who, by the way, a fun little one-line throwaway. The handyman was actually a convicted murderer who murdered his whole family with like a hammer or something. But the ex-husband rehabilitated him, and then he became their handyman. And she's like, why didn't you tell me this before? And he's like, well, I never thought you'd, want him to be a handyman. Of course she wouldn't. She had a young kid. I mean, the things that occur in this, no human being would make these decisions. And that's the part where it's like, okay, this is a parody, but even parodies are more realistic. There are plot points in Scary Movie and The Naked Gun that are more realistic than what occurred here. So the hook being is that the reason why the guy's a widower is a little kid killed her mother because she was having another kid, and she thought that was selfish. Now that is not saying it's justifiable. Maybe I shouldn't say justifiable, but at least in my head I was like, okay, that's a good enough reason you want to be an only child. But then she kills her dad because her dad's therapist or somebody thought he could cope with the loss of his wife by doing ventriloquism with a dummy, and she's like, well, that was horrible, so I killed him. And she killed the girlfriend for I can't even remember the reason why she killed the girlfriend. Something about she wanted like a cookie and the girlfriend was against sugar or whatever. No, I see no problem with like killing the girlfriend, but the dad, which makes you an orphan, by the way, it would make you an orphan because he was bad at ventriloquism. Like, I get that there's a level of absurdity there, but at no point was I like, this is funny. I was at the point where I was like, what is this? Like, what am I watching here? I don't even know what I was watching, to be honest with you. And so, like I said, I'm still waiting for, like, a fight scene occurs between her and the little girl, which is probably like I said, it's silly, it's over the top, but at no point is it, like, played for, like, super laughs. It's just played kind of silly and odd. Like, I don't know. I don't even know what to think about what I just occurred watching this show. But then they have an ending, which her ex-husband has, like, a new girlfriend, and he's always bringing her around, only to find out that the girl's, like, a fellow coworker, and he's not actually dating anyone, which is silly, because why would you bring your coworker to, like, events, and you drive together, and you do all this stuff that makes it seem like you are. So, of course, everything works out. They have a new baby, which, why would they ever have a new baby? Why would they ever, like, it works out, the husband and wife get back together, they have a younger child. She goes to visit her friend in New York, and then Glenn Close is on the plane for some reason. Not actually Glenn Close, but she's just a character. And then she finds her dead in the bathroom. And then, of course, she drank a ton on the plane, because she's still a drunk. Even though everything is worked out, she's still a drunk. And then she goes back, she gets the flight attendant to check, and of course there's nobody in the bathroom, but then she sees, like, the mirror that she was using on the plane, and that's how it ends. So, I don't even know where to begin. It's the ramblings of a crazy person. Like, there's no way this is steeped in... I'm still convinced that the only way to make this show work is if it ends with her being in an insane asylum, and she made up a whole story about her life being better and more grandiose than it actually is. Is it watchable? Sure, it's watchable. But there are some leaps in logic that I cannot just pull my head around. I just can't put my head around it. So on a 5-star scale, I give this one 2, I think. The performances are fine. Kristen Bell's fine. She's great in the role that she does. It's the absurdity of it. Now, they have a situation, like, she goes to visit her daughter's grave, and every time she goes to visit her daughter's grave, there's a different etching on the headstone under, like, there's, like, a small little, like, etching. That's the only thing that I saw that was, like, of a parody type. Everything else was meant to be played, like, semi-serious, but was a parody. I don't know. I assume if you watched this far, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you watch the woman in the house across the street from the girl in the window? What were your thoughts on it? Did you take the leap of... Did you jump in this leap of logic? This absurdist fairy tale. Did you like it? Did you not like it? I mean, look, I binged through it. I watched it in like a day. But then at the end of it, I was like, wow, I don't even know where to be. I don't even know where to begin. So this is my, like I said, my outlet to the world. Please let me know your thoughts. Please comment down below your thoughts on this show. Would you watch a season 2? At the moment, I mean, I guess. Just this, at this point, there's been so much absurdity that I've sat through that I guess I would, maybe just to pick on it a little bit worse. I don't understand what it is. I don't think it knows what it is. But I want your thoughts. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Let me know if I'm crazy. Let me know if I'm doing the ramblings of a drunk, crazy person. I'm not drunk. Maybe crazy. Who knows? But guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of TomWasHere TV Junkie. If you are new here, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you'd like to support me on Patreon like John Bailey did, you can do so. Link is in the description below. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, you can do so. It's Spreadshirt, as well as links to my eBay store, Facebook page, Instagram, Clubhouse, and the Pennsylvania Autograph Collectors Association. All links are in the description below. Let me know your thoughts on this show. Let me know your thoughts on if there's a show you want me to review. But guys, thank you so much for watching. And until the next video, we will see you soon. But until then, bye everyone.